بعدی ما شیوا محبوبی هست، سخنگوی کمیته مبارزه برای آزادی زندانیان سیاسی، زندانی سیاسی سابق، فعال حقوق زنان و روانکاو. شیوا محبوبی، برنامه ما خوش آمدی، از شما میشنویم.
خیلی ممنون. سلام میکنم به همه شما عزیزان. روز جهانی زن رو تبریک میگم، باعث افتخار در میان همه شما هستم. من اول به انگلیسی صحبت میکنم، بعد خیلی خلاصه ترجمه میکنم که کار تحمیلم راحت بشه. من چیزی که میخوام بگم، first of all, hello everyone, happy International Women's Day, and I would like to thank the organizer for organizing such an important event. It's really an honor to be among you all, listening to every story, every experience. And I think we as women, generally, we all have our stories. We also carry the stories of our mothers and grandmothers. And I guess no matter where we are from, as we heard from other speakers, no matter where we are from, in some way, our rights have been subjected to suppression. And now, or sometimes in our life, we all experience discrimination, we all experience the suppression of our rights. And this is why no matter where we are from, we relate to each other's pain. When we see women are suffering in different countries, when we relate to them, one doesn't need to be born or grown up in Iran or Afghanistan or Iraq or Saudi Arabia to know what it's like that every single part of your life being raped by the law. So therefore, it's really important that we consider that we relate to women's rights movement in different countries. We relate to their demands, we relate to their suppression, we relate to their resilience, every part of that. So in some way, like take an example of, I know this is a cliche example, Me Too movement. It doesn't matter where you are in the society, in the Hollywood or different part of the society, you relate to that. You relate what it's like to be a woman. And in some way, I think at the same time, we relate to people's struggle when there are fights in different countries. Now, Humaira spoke about, for example, Afghanistan, or Yanar spoke about Iraq. Those fights actually inspires people around the world to fight for women's rights. If I want to compare it, this universality of pain, if you want to call it, or universality of lack of right, you can compare it with workers' movement, like exploitation of workers happen around the world. And also fight for labor's right happen around the world in every country. But in somehow, my point is, I know the speaker spoke about different aspects of women's rights, but my observation is it's much easier to mobilize, let's say, labor organization, labor unions, to defend or to support labor movement in a specific country, or mobilize them to demand the release of labor activists in Iran or somewhere else. But it's much harder to do that for women's rights, for example. And in some way, I don't see the same scale of support for women. And don't take me wrong, I know that many labor organizations, many labor unions, they fight for women's rights in their country. But generally, we don't see that large scale. Literally now everyone knows in the world that in countries such as Iran, Afghanistan, or other Islamic-stricken countries, I'm naming these two, or Saudi Arabia, because misogyny actually being systematic and being legalized. And they all know that. But my question is, how many international women organizations, they're actually supporting the women's right? Like when you hear Humaira talking about Afghanistan, this is just a recent example. How many, actually, when it's not on the news, how many international women organizations and even labor organizations, they actually initiate a campaign to support them? How many international women organizations, they are pressuring regime in Iran, for example, or Taliban to release all the women's rights activists? we don't see many. It's almost like violence against women in every sort and shapes being normalized. And I think it is sad not to see that global kind of support for women's rights. Right. Like in Iran, where basically I'm more activist on that area. In Iran, many women's rights activists are in prison at the moment, being tortured, familiar stories that you hear everywhere, unfortunately. But after 43 years of, again, legalized misogyny, they haven't backed down. They actually fight from prison. They send letters. And they're not even, they lead the protest in different kind of occasions in Iran. And they refuse to be minimized. I'll finish in a minute. And they refuse to be minimized to a baby-making machine. But you don't see any support for that internationally. And I'm actually here we as activists, we need to think about it, how we can mobilize the international organization to support women's movement in this country. We can't just see that they do just a simple act of support and that's it. We really need to demand it as women, as women's rights activists, men and women, we need to demand that. Thank you. I tried to say it very quickly. Do you want me to say it in Farsi?
بله، فارسیش هم اگه خودتون بگین خیلی بهتر هست. فشرده از شما میشنویم. بفرمایید.
خیلی ممنون. بله، من صحبتامو انگلیسی کردم چون اولا معتقدم به نظر من همه ما باید سعی کنیم در سطح بین‌المللی توجه و حمایت رو به وضعیت زنان جلب بکنیم. و من صحبت کردم از اینکه همه ما مثل زن داستان‌هایی داریم تو زندگیمون، تجارب تلخی داریم و به همین دلیل وقتی صحبت‌های زنان دنیا رو میشنویم که چطور مورد اذیت و آزار قرار گرفتن، اون احساس همدردی و اون احساس مشترک رو با اونها داریم. در این حال در هر کشوری که میبینیم زنان شجاعانه میان جلو و مبارزه میکنن، همون باعث میشه خیلی ها رو ترغیب کنه که اعتراض بکنن. و همینطور اشاره کردم به این که به طور واقعی اگر شما نگاه کنین، اگر شما مقایسه کنین با جنبش کارگری در سطح دنیا، کارگران چطور زنان در سطح دنیا مورد سرکوب و اذیت و آزار قرار میگیرن، کارگران در سطح دنیا چه زن چه مرد مورد استثمار قرار میگیرن و در عین حال جنبش کارگری در کشورهای مختلف فعاله. ولی وقتی مقایسه میکنین اون حمایت جهانی که در جنبش کارگری وجود داره از طرف سازمانهای جهانی زن و حتی سازمانهای جهانی برای جنبش زنان وجود نداره. برای مثال دوستان اشاره کردن به وضعیت‌های مختلف در کشورهای مختلف و اینکه چطوره که در کشوری مثل افغانستان و یا ایران زنان و در واقع مدافعین حقوق زنان در زندان‌ها هستن و هیچ فشار جهانی برای آزادیشون نیست. و یا اینکه چطور زمانی که ببخشید
سپاس از شما، فرصت شما. فقط جملتون تموم کنی اگر امکان داره.
من فقط سوالم این بود که ما به عنوان فعالین این به اصطلاح عرصه چجوری میتونیم سازمان‌های جهانی، اتحادیه‌های کارگری، سازمان‌های حقوق زنان رو اینها رو وادار کنیم که در واقع کارزارهای بزرگی در سطح جهان در حمایت از حقوق زنان بالاخص در کشورهای اسلام زده بگذارن. مرسی.
ممنون از شما شیوا محبوبی.